Go ahead and get started. We're going to do a couple things on this webinar. Thank you all for coming. We're going to have a quick overview of Bamboo. We're going to talk about our pricing and licensing strategy. Then we're going to get into the details and the overview of how Alerts Plus is set up, and then we're going to see a demo of the product. So why don't we just go ahead and get started on that? Thank you all for coming. So let me move over here. So Bamboo. We've been making products for SharePoint since, wow, 2007, I would say. So now we're primarily focused on SharePoint Online, but we do still support 50 products for SharePoint on-prem all the way up through subscription edition. So Alerts Plus is available in both flavors, both on-prem as well as online. We also have a great services team now. So we do portal builds, Power App development, Dataverse solutions. We have a Microsoft 365 help desk. Which is sort of a managed service for all things Microsoft 365, including security. So please reach out to us if there's anything you need an extra set of hands for on the services side. But we have about 8,000 customers worldwide, 2,000 on active maintenance. And we got both very large customers as well as a lot of smaller customers. We find that the same functional white space exists in SharePoint Online, but it's a whole new group of people that have access to it. So we're getting a lot of new first-time customers using our products and the like. So, we bought the company Bamboo in 2016. So our company, SharePoint Experts, has been around since 2011. I actually was the VP of sales for Bamboo prior to starting SharePoint Experts, and now the Bamboo products development and brand are all part of our company, SharePoint Experts. The products themselves are SPFX solutions, which means they utilize the SharePoint framework. They run within your environment, and they're available for download from both our website as well as the Microsoft's App Store. I don't know if Alerts Plus is on there just yet, so you can only get that from our website. There's two licensing options for the product that we'll get into in a little bit, but we have to note that all of our products are not add-ins. So we all see add-in support going away. That's a different technology. Ours are SPFX solutions. That is the preferred methodology that Microsoft wants third parties to create value-added products for SharePoint, and that is the way it's going to be moving forward. So our products are here to stay. What we do note is these are not SaaS services or PaaS services, so everything runs in your tenant and the like. Alerts Plus is a little bit different, and we'll get into those differences in a second. We've got two licensing options. One, you can buy the license as a perpetual license, and the other is a subscription option, which utilizes our Azure Web Service to actually generate the alerts. So we'll look at that in a second. But this whole new subscription pricing that we have is really customer demand. Some want to buy licenses as perpetual license. It's typically a capital expenditure at that point, but others want a subscription where they can bundle 3 to 6 products together and pay an easy monthly fee and have access to it. So our subscription programs are very affordable. That you can see here, the pricing. We'll look at it on the website as well. And the other is a perpetual licensing where you buy the product and you pay maintenance every year and the like. We do have some small business pricing as well. So if you're a super small company under 100 people, or you're a not-for-profit government entity with less than 300, we've got some special pricing for you as well. We also have a licensing management solution that comes free with our products. It's called Bamboo Tenant Manager. And it's used to license your products, but it's also used to gather analytics about how the products are working within your tenant. Again, this is another web part. It's free with your purchase, and it really allows you to look at the analytics of where all our products are installed, how often users are accessing them, what are the most popular products, and things like that. So it's a really nice new product that we've developed that, again, we give with our products, so that our customers can help justify the usage, the ROI, where they're being used. Because sometimes, let's say we take a product like Calendar Plus or Tabify, which are some of our other products, and Tabify could be on 5,000 different sites within your tenant. So where is it? Where has it been deployed? How often is it being used? Those become great questions that companies like us want to make sure you have answers to. Okay, so let me just make sure this is being recorded. Yes, it is. Okay, so let's jump to Alerts Plus and really what is its purpose and how is it set up? Because we're doing some very complicated things so that you don't have to do very complicated things to get meaningful alerts. So Alerts Plus is a tool that allows you as an administrator, right, to create custom alerts and manage those alerts based on items in a list or in a library. So unlike the SharePoint alerts, which users create to say, I want to be alerted when things change in a list, that's really only on an item modified or changed, and it's really just kind of a noise alert. It just is a lot of information without a lot of detail on that alert that's created. This is different. This is actually an alert that you as an administrator set up, right, on and can be triggered whether an item is created, an item is changed, or an item simply exists in a list and meets a certain business rule, i.e. a task is not completed and it's due next week. So in that case, nothing's happened to the task, but we want to generate an alert based on a business rule. So these meaningful alerts can be sent when you need them. We've got two sort of ways. You can do an ASAP, right, which is essentially every 15 minutes, the way SharePoint Online works. Or you can comb through the list once a day to generate the alert, let's say at midnight or at 7 a.m. or something like that. What's nice is you generate those business rules, such as, an alert is not completed and is due next week, or an alert has moved from completed, or an item value is over $10,000 that's in a list, right? And as you get big lists, these become very meaningful things that you want to do. The alerts are generated in a web part in SharePoint, but then those alerts are actually packaged up and sent to Azure. In the on-prem world, we used to have timer jobs that could run often. That doesn't exist in SharePoint Online. So the challenge was, how do we run a process every 15 minutes or once a day that combs through a list, right, and generates the alert, which then formulates an email and then sends it to a user, which could be the task owner, a list item, or just a group, a SharePoint group or an Exchange group, right, that gets the alert. So that actually happens in Azure, and that's where this whole thing can exist in your environment, in your Azure environment, or you can just have the web part in SharePoint, and then your alert actually runs in our Azure environment, which is very quick and easy to set up and is included in the subscription. And then we'll send the emails out. None of your data is stored in our environment. It's all sort of, we log in, look at your list, we generate the email in memory, send out the email, and then we're done. So we're not storing any data in our Azure environment. It's all using Azure Secrets. It's all the Microsoft stack. So the thing is there, but we will actually help you set it up in your Azure environment if that's the way you want to go and have it fully contained in your SharePoint tenant and your Azure tenant, or your SharePoint tenant to create the alerts and then our Azure tenant to actually generate the stuff. It's all included. We've done it many, many, many times, and it's all good. So it's all about reminders and generating these alerts, right? So things like Project Health, alert users when tasks are assigned or about to be late. Manage risks, set thresholds on alerts when values in a list reach a critical level, right? So, like the purchase request that's being managed in a list and it's over $10,000, something like that. Make your alerts meaningful, right? So you control the alerts to ensure that the information is delivered. You can actually see the success. And then you can add all sorts of information from those lists into the alert, including links to the list or to the item or to the site, as variables within the email, so that when the user does get that email, they know what it's all about, as opposed to sort of the out-of-the-box alerts, and they can click on links and get to it, and it's very personalized based on the data we're being alerted off of, right? And again, you can run the alerts piece in our Azure environment or yours. So again, we've done some of these use cases, right? Student records being finalized, documents have been updated, data is ready to be processed, right? Or task management. So it's an infinite amount of items, right? So the question has always been, well, I've got Power Automate, right? So why can't I just create a flow to generate the alert? Well, Power Automate does cost money every time you run a job, right? So if you're coming through 10,000 items in a list, looping through those records will count towards your daily 24-hour limit. So save those limits for more complex automation projects, things that are automating a full process, not just simply sending out an alert. Our alerts are created instantly. They're quick. You can generate alerts and manage those within that web part a lot easier than creating flows using service accounts and things like that. Not that you can't do it, but this doesn't use your cycles, and it allows you to create them quickly with a little less skill than needed to create a Power Automate flow. It also scales across the organization, right? You can manage hundreds of alerts that run across hundreds of lists and libraries across every site collection, parsing all sorts of thousands and thousands of items, right? All of a sudden, Power Automate becomes a very expensive tool to simply send out an alert, monitoring a list, looking for business rules that you need to get done, right? So for alerts, generating email notifications proactively, this is the right tool for that job. That's the bit of the sell, right, on it. But what we find is it's the right tool. It truly is. And we really recommend you start a trial with our product, which are free to do, and we'll fully support you and the like. But, for flows, you can see here on the right here, the request limit is tied to the primary owner's license. So whoever's licensed your organization, right? So a standard license, you can have 6,000 actions in 24 hours. A premium license, it gets a little more, 40,000. And then if you have bought the full flow with a process license, you can have 250,000. Now those are probably, you bought those to automate processes, not comb through lists. So if even on a premium license, if you've got 10 lists, each with 5,000 items in it, that's 50,000 actions to go through every item with Power Automate, and that uses everything that you own just to do that. Doesn't make any sense, right? We're a lot cheaper, a lot faster, and a lot easier to manage. So the way it works, right, again, we've talked about the architecture, we're going to see it in action, is in SharePoint, right, you've got your lists, right, but we also have the web part that allows you to generate, to configure the alert that you want against the list, right? And then essentially that alert gets pushed up into Azure, into a storage queue and a storage table, and we run that on the timing that you want, which is every 15 minutes or once a day at a certain time. And we kind of jump into SharePoint, run through all of those lists compared to the business rules, and then on triggered events, we generate an email grabbing that information and send it out, right? And then, of course, since those microprocesses are up here in Azure, right, we're using, private key to access your tenant, which is all set up, and we've got great security documents on how, but this is how Microsoft wants you to do it. This whole process can run in your Azure environment, or you can simply use our Azure environment, because it really doesn't take much to run these things, and then off you go. It looks really good, and there we go. So let's go ahead and jump over to our website. If you want to raise your hand or just chat a question to me, I will be looking at those throughout, and I can answer questions that you have on what you're seeing. All right, so let me bring over my browser. So here's our homepage, bamboosolutions.com. Up here under the products, the blue products on the left are all of our SharePoint Online products. So in this View More section, you can get a complete list. Here's some of our top sellers. Our small business pricing is here. Subscription pricing is there, and the like. So let me actually move my little share screen so I can actually move around. Great overview of all the services we have with our consultants. We've got a great team of consultants and support folks, so you can see what we do on that side. We do a lot of migrations. We've got a federal business as well, where we do placements in SharePoint development and SharePoint migration teams within the federal government and the like. So really a nice website to get through the three pieces of our company, which is products, services, and Fed. in there. So if we go to the products, right, we can see all of our products for SharePoint Online. So we've got an advanced search, which allows you to search against lists. We got a simple search, which allows you to search against a single list. Here's Alerts Plus, which we're talking about today. There's the Tenant Manager. We've got a great calendaring product. We've got a image rotator called Carousel. We've got charting. We can do column level security. We've got a data viewer product. We've got a Directory Plus product, which ties into your Active Directory and allows you to build directories of your team members. We've got a free one and a paid one, a knowledge-based product. Printing lists is always a challenge, so we've got a great product called List Print that'll actually put a cover sheet on it and print lists in several different formats depending on what your list looks like. We can roll lists together. We got a Kanban board. We got an org charting. This is another popular one where we can actually build org charts off of lists or go into your Active Directory and build org charts that way. We got a tree view. Tabify is an amazing product that allows you to tab web parts on a SharePoint page. Instead of having them in a list format, you can actually create tabs horizontally, vertically. We're adding a feature where you can add multiple web parts to each tab, and each tab can have a unique URL. So if you want to launch somebody right into a specific tab, you can do that as well. So lots of fun stuff to look at. We've been busy over here at Bamboo creating products for the enterprise out there for SharePoint Online. Now, if we look at Alerts Plus, we have a nice demo here. We've got some key features that we're going to see when we actually use the product. And then we've got our pricing options. So you see 4 boxes here. This box in the upper left-hand corner is just the regular perpetual license, $5,500, which includes first-year maintenance. If you're going to run the Azure services in your environment. If you're a small business, it's only $1,200. So that's first year cost. Second year cost would be 22% of that as your maintenance to get continued support, updates and new versions, and things like that. So it becomes essentially $1,200 a year to maintain the product. And again, that's unlimited alerts, as many lists as you want, and it's all running in your Azure environment. If you want to use our Azure environment, that is, the web part exists in your tenant, you build it, but the alerts are actually coming from us. That's just simply $1,500 a year subscription. If you're a small business, $330 a year. So these are really the 2 options for implementing Alerts Plus and the like. Now, the on-prem stuff you can find just by clicking this link, and that's all based on web front ends, and it only works in your environment. We don't have an Azure environment. There's no Azure on the on-prem version. It uses timer jobs to do the cycling of the jobs. So pretty straightforward, very cool. And if there's no questions on how it's priced, right? There's no per user pricing. There's no per transaction pricing. It's just a price. So you can see it becomes very affordable as opposed to Power Automate. And then once you see how you actually build your alerts, you're going to be like, oh, this makes a ton of sense to have and the like. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our SharePoint Online site. You can see spxteam.sharepoint.com. And I've got a list here, right? It's a small list, right? But it's a task. It's got a start date and a due date. It's got an assigned to, department, it's just a regular list, right? But what I want to do is be able to generate an alert on this list, right? That runs every 15 minutes or once a day. That looks for tasks that are not completed, right? But where the due date is next week, right? So do I have any of those in here? Do I need to make a couple? March 20th. No, we don't want that. Let's go ahead and let's edit these so we can actually generate some. So these are assigned to me. They're not started. Let's go ahead and I'm just updating the list here to be a little more current. Make that May. This one May 2. Next week. All right, so now I got some things we can load up. Nothing else. Everything else is kind of completed in progress, and this is way old, so we would have to generate a different alert to look at things that are old. All right, so I got this list. It's located here, right? Now, right above it, I just happen to have the web part that allows me to create the alerts. These can be they're usually in a lot of different places, right? You've got your centralized alert generator web part that admins have access to, right? And then your lists are scattered throughout your whole site, right? So they're in all sorts. But for me, they're all in the same one for my demo here because it's a little bit easier. And I've already created an alert called task is overdue. So let's go ahead and just take a look at that there. What's nice is I can clone the alert. So if I wanted to also create the task that's, past due, I don't have to recreate it from scratch. I can just kind of clone it and then edit it, clone it and edit it, clone it and edit it, and create a whole bunch of different alerts for this one list that makes sense. I can see it's enabled, right? And things like that. I can see the last run status and the last run date, which is none because I just created this for the webinar and the like. So let's go in here and take a look at the actual alert. So I get it a friendly name for me, right? So I can manage my alerts as the administration. I can also, while I'm working on it, have it disabled so it's not sending alerts out all over the place, right? So you can kind of turn them on and off, which is nice, right? I can also set the time zone for the alert based on, the list that I'm alerting off of. Is it important to people in the UK? Right? So if I say I want it to go at midnight, I want it midnight UK time, right? So again, these are alerts that administrators are setting up, not the users, right? So we don't know what the user's time is, right? But usually lists are related to a series of time zones, or you just do it off a central time zone that makes sense to everybody in your organization. What's nice is I can integrate this with a single list, right? Or I can use another one of the Bamboo products called List Rollup. And List Rollup would allow me to roll together a lot of lists and create a single alert against many lists all at once. Or I can create multiple alerts, one for each list. So it really depends on what you want to do. If you want a little more convenience, you buy List Rollup, and then you create a schema that ties all those lists together, which we call a list rollup schema. And then you just point to that for your alerting. We're not going to get into that today, but that is also a way our products kind of work together to help make your life easier. But right now we've just got a list. So I actually just grabbed the URL, put it here. So this is going to tell us where is the list that we're going to alert off of. So I hit my load, and then I get my list of lists, right? So here's all the lists within that URL of the target. And I've got my little alerts plus demo list right there that I selected, right? And then I've got my timing. So do I want my alerts to run as soon as possible, which is every 15 minutes in SharePoint Online? Or do I want it to run once a day, right? And then I can pick the time that it's run, right? So if I want it to run, probably won't see it. We'll probably just do this as soon as possible. Now, what's nice is we then choose what's going to trigger the alert. The fact that an item is created, that it's been changed, that has been created or modified, so either one of those, or just simply that the item exists, and then we're going to build a business rule, right? So we still have, right, the normal alerting, right? Something's been created, something's been changed, something's been created or changed, so you don't have to create two alerts, one for created, one for changed. We actually let you do both in one trigger, or an item exists. Now, once the alert is triggered, right, and the email is generated and sent to a person, you can change the follow-up, right? So if this thing is running every 15 minutes, you don't want the alert to be sent every 15 minutes. So once it's sent, you say, I want to wait 1 day or half a day, or I don't know, I think it's just by the day, before you send out the alert again, right? That way you're not bombarding the user with lots of emails, right? So if it gets triggered, then I'm going to wait a day and then trigger it again if it's not fixed, right? So we're gonna run that. So that's really important when you set up the as soon as possible. Now, if we want to look at all items, right, we can set the trigger off of that, and it's going to send an email for every item that you have in there. That if an item exists, it's going to send out the trigger. We don't want that to happen, because then you're going to send an email for everything in your list. Now, sometimes that's important, especially if you're doing an item is created, right? Because then you want all items, right? And then any items that have been created, you want to send the alert out. There's no business rule other than it's been created. But if it exists, you want to make sure you choose some items. And with that, you get this little builder to build your business rule. So in this case, right, here's all my list columns. I want the due date, right? And here we go. Equals something, not equals, less than, or equal to, greater than, blah, 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 blah. And then how about is in the next week? That's nice. So if the due date is next week, and then I got my and or, and the status does not equal completed, right? Or the status equals, or is not null, or something like that. So if we've got it as completed, right? And I go next, I can then, I've got, so just so you know, so that's built this little filter, right? By just selecting those, an item exists. I'm going to wait a day. I'm going to run it as soon as possible. Now, what is the alert going to look like? So that's the next step. So essentially, it's just an email builder, right? So the from can be anything in your organization, right? Support at bamboosolutions.com. The to can be a token in your list. In this case, it's the field assigned to, right? I can give it a subject, and then I can create a very nice, rich email selecting data from my list, right? Title, modified, created, author, edit, start date, due date, right? You have an upcoming task that is due. How about not even next week? Instead of next week, let's give them the due date. We'll just put the due date in there and get rid of next week, right? And that's the same way I got the assigned to up here. I just put the assigned to and I copied it and moved it up there. So these can be tokens. You can have tokens in the subject line. You can have tokens in the body. And then we actually have some additional tokens, right? And we've included things like the list name, the list URL, the item URL, and the site URL. So that way the user gets a clickable link to go right to the item to update its status in here. So you can see this is super meaningful, super easy. I can set an alert up in 5 minutes and it's off, triggering, sending out emails to task owners to remind them to get their task done because they've got one coming up. Now, once that goes out, let's say, I guess Sunday it would start, right? Because that's the first of the week and it's due next week. Then Monday, if it's still not completed, they're going to get another reminder. And then Tuesday, they're going to get another reminder. And then Wednesday, until that thing becomes completed. And then that alert won't trigger anymore because it doesn't meet the business rule. And then once that's done, I've got my alert's been updated. It's now sent up to Azure. And then in 15 minutes, it's going to run against this list right here. And it's going to find anything due next week and send an email to Rob, right here. And then this one's also Rob. Courtney may get one. I have to probably create another one for past due because this isn't due next week. So that trigger is not going to happen. Right? So I would create, let's say I would just go ahead and clone this. Right? Now I've got the copy. Let's go ahead and edit it. We're going to say the task is past due. Right? And I'm going to change this where the due date is, what do I got in here? Passed by. There we go. The due date's passed by. And the status is not completed, right? So if it's completed and passed by, you don't want to send the alert. But if it's not completed and the due date is passed, right? And I'm going to just change this thing. You've got an upcoming task that is past due. Oops. Past due. And has not been finished. So it's very similar. And now I've got a second alert that I just created for my past due, right? And that shows you the power of the cloning. These are all disabled. I got to turn them back on to actually get the alert. But you get the idea of what happens. And essentially, I'd get an email with all that information in there that shows it done. So we're right at the half hour. Any questions on what we've seen today? Does this look interesting for your organization? Did it meet the expectations of what you thought you would see today? Just a little thumbs up or yes, or if you want to see more, let me know. Again, all of our trials are fully supported by our team. And you can simply go to the Alerts Plus product page here, whoops, and start a trial by clicking the orange Try By button, grab the trial, this is the purchase, this is the trial, add it to your cart. This will automatically hook to our website. right? You'll use our Azure services for the 30 days trial. So you can build alerts. They will run in our Azure service. And we'll make sure all that connection is working for you, but you can really see how it works. We can do a trial in your Azure environment as well. All trials are 30 days, no cost, no commitment. Love to get you working on it. And then when you're ready to go live, we just simply license it and off you go. So all the alerts you built will continue to run after the 30 days. We're a small company. We love to make our customers happy. We hope you enjoyed this webinar, and we really fully support you on a trial of this or any of our products we have in the catalog. All right, I think we got one question that just came in. Or let's see what we got here. So we have a workflow product. No, we don't. This is our workflow product moving forward. We used to have one for on-prem called Workflow Conductor that competed with Nintex. But the workflow world is just being dominated by Power Automate, and it doesn't make sense for us to recreate that product. So we do not have one. We'd love to hear what you're thinking you would need, because we're always looking for ideas that maybe there's a simple something that we could create that does a job similar to Alerts Plus that may fit your needs. So Jeff, let us know. We'd love to hear more about what you've got there. All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming. We'll send a recording of this around so you can share it with your team. If you have any questions, just email me or support@bamboosolutions.com, and we'll go from there. Thank you all, and have a great day.